In recent months, FDA Commissioner Marty McCary has hosted a handful of so-called expert panels. These panels have discussed topics like SSRIs and pregnancy, menopause hormone therapy, talc, and infant formula. But critics are worried that these panels evade regulation and allow FDA leadership to cherry-pick experts and evidence.
From what the experts I spoke to can tell, these are a new type of FDA meeting. HHS told me that they're, quote, part of the FDA's broader efforts to apply rigorous evidence-based standards to ingredient safety and modernize regulatory oversight, thoroughly considering evolving science and consumer health. However, Adrienne Few-Berman, who's the director of Farmed Out, said she thinks these expert panels may be a runaround advisory committees, which are usually made up of vetted, occupationally diverse, academically credentialed researchers who addressed a particular question. The Federal Advisory Committee Act, or FACA, requires that advisory committee meetings be announced on the Federal Register 15 days in advance and that meeting materials be made public. The public also has to have a chance to speak. That hasn't been happening at these expert panels. Sarah Wicks, who's a lawyer well-versed in FDA law, told me that these panels, quote, don't seem to fit squarely within the scope of that law. Having such short notice is a major issue for people planning to attend. On top of that, some of the panels have been held in small rooms with limited capacity, even when larger rooms are available, meaning not everyone who wants to attend can. Diana Zuckerman, who's the president of the National Center for Health Research, told me that she suspected some of the people who were invited to attend the menopause panel were told in advance because the room was mostly filled with supporters. HHS didn't answer my questions about whether or not that was the case. And remember, audience members weren't allowed to speak, so even though the panelists at the menopause meeting had a shared perspective, no one with different opinions were able to have that perspective represented and share it with the group. Several people raised concerns about panelists' conflict of interest, especially since they've been selected behind closed doors. For instance, at the menopause meeting, disclosures were flashed on the screen but not shown on the live stream, so anyone watching virtually couldn't see what they were. One of the panelists at the talc meeting, Daniel William Kramer, didn't disclose that he had been a paid expert witness in litigation against manufacturers who use talc in their products. Susan Main, who is a former director of the FDA's Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition, she told me that, quote, that's a red flag for me, that people were handpicked to represent a particular perspective and may have big conflicts of interest that were not disclosed. George Tidmarsh, a pediatrician, was an expert panelist for both talc and infant formula, even though he had only just published his first paper on talc weeks before, conveniently in the Journal of the Academy of Public Health, which is a fringe journal with ties to COVID contrarians turned federal health leaders. HHS dodged my questions on upcoming expert panels, if everyone is invited to attend these panels at the same time, and why the public isn't permitted to speak. We'll be following this story as it unfolds.